So thanks everyone for joining this Copilot Day, especially on Saturday. I would like to thank our sponsor Binary Roots for sponsoring the Copilot Day virtual event. And the major pillars of this event, Nandit Nachan, Siddhartha Gasia, Smita Nachan, and Gun Sangania. So for organizing the wonderful event by the Pune Tech community. So with that, we'll get started. So today's actual agenda of the topic, the GitHub Copilot, revolutioning the code generation with AI assistance. So with everyone, myself, Janarthanan Selvaraj. So I am a senior specialist at Evident. So please participate in the upcoming sessions as well so that you can win an exciting prizes for the Copilot Day event. So this is about a brief introduction about me. So I'm Janarthanan Selvaraj. I'm a C# Corner MVP as well as a Microsoft certified trainer. So I used to talk at various events like Global AI Bootcamp and Global Azure across the different communities. So I'm a technical manager as well as senior specialist at Evident. So currently I'm holding 15 multi-cloud certifications and I'm an open source contributor and I'm an AI researcher. So you can scan me for anything related to the AI related queries as well as the Gen AI queries on my LinkedIn. I'll help you on that queries. So there's my LinkedIn QR code. You can scan this. So this is about the today's agenda. The today's agenda is the GitHub Copilot introduction, the architecture, how to install GitHub Copilot, and how will you improve the GitHub Copilot for your coding workflow. And what is prompt engineering and what are best practices of prompt engineering. And we will see finally the GitHub Copilot pricing model. So any questions, you can ping me on the chat. So whenever time permits, I will answer it immediately. And even you can ask your Q&A at the end of the session as well. So with that, we will get started into the GitHub Copilot AI assistance tool. So first of all, we should know what is the GitHub Copilot. Okay, the GitHub Copilot is the artificial intelligence tool where it is going to assess the complete developers in terms of suggestions, in terms of code-based context. You can make use of the GitHub Copilot tool, and this GitHub Copilot tool is your AI pair programmer. Why it is called as AI pair programmer? Because it has played the role of pair programming. When I say pair programming, you might be heard about in the agile practices. So there are two roles involved in the pair programming. One is called the driver role. The other one is called as navigator role. The driver is the one who is going to write the code, and the navigator is the one who is going to inspect the code or else review the code. Okay. In the similar context, the GitHub Copilot is your AI pair programming. So it emphasizes the pair programming aspect in terms of code suggestions, in terms of writing code assistance. Your GitHub Copilot will be mostly used. And this GitHub Copilot is developed by the GitHub, and it is powered by the OpenAI Codex. When I say OpenAI Codex, it is a code generation model where you can write the prompt in terms of natural language. You may able to convert your natural language to SQL. You can convert the natural language prompt to your any type of coding language like Python, your Ruby, JavaScript, those coding languages, it is possible to do your code generation aspect. And with the help of this GitHub Copilot, the users started writing the prompt. And if they want to suggest any type of code conventions or code suggestions or code improvisation, the GitHub Copilot always suggested. And this GitHub Copilot, it is an extension to multiple IDEs, not only Visual Studio Code, the other IDEs also your GitHub Copilot supports. So this is about the introduction part about your GitHub Copilot. And the major key features of this GitHub Copilot, what is our major key feature? First one is the user started writing the prompt, okay, or writing the comment. Those comment, it is started converting into code-based suggestions. That is one of the major aspect of GitHub Copilot. And the second major aspect of this GitHub Copilot, it auto fills the repetitive code. When I say auto fills the repetitive code, all your boilerplate coding, the easiest way or the fastest way to do your coding aspect in GitHub Copilot is use your auto filling approach to fill all your repetitive codes so that you can save the time and effort in order to start making your code even more better. Or else if I want to boost your developer productivity, you can make use of this approach, autofill the repetitive code. And the other important features of your GitHub Copilot, it adapts to your coding style. Okay, that is one of the major benefit of this GitHub Copilot. And it supports multiple languages like Java, .NET, Python, JavaScript, Ruby. These are the languages supported by GitHub Copilot. And the frameworks like Angular, React.js, or Vue.js, those frameworks are supported by the GitHub Copilot. And how the GitHub Copilot started improvising your code suggestions, it will be learning continuously from the feedback. Whatever the prompt where users started prompting in the GitHub Copilot, it learns from those aspects called as in-context learning. There is a concept called as in-context learning in the large language model, where we will be talking about three types of learning. One is called as zero-shot learning, few-shot learning, one-shot learning. Suppose if the model try to predict the output based upon the input behavior, we can call it as zero-shot learning. And if the model able to predict the output with only a few uh, examples of task description, we can call it as few shot learning. And similarly, whenever your model tries to predict the output behavior with only one task of description, which is called as one shot learning. All these one shot learning, few shot learning, as well as your zero shot learning, all these learnings are related to the context aware suggestions. When I say context aware suggestions, the user started converting the comment into a code aspect. That is one of the best feature of your GitHub Copilot. And this GitHub Copilot always shows the alternative code suggestions it is providing. That is one of the major benefit of your GitHub Copilot. So with that, we will move further. So this is a GitHub Copilot architecture. If you notice the GitHub Copilot architecture, this GitHub Copilot is now going to behave as a service. Okay. So how this GitHub Copilot will be implemented as a service, we will see in a live example. This GitHub Copilot, it is developed by GitHub Corporation, and it is powered by the OpenAI Codex model. When I say OpenAI Codex model, it talks about the code generation, where user wants to understand and where the user wants to generate the prompt into code aspect is called as code generation model. All your OpenAI code generation model will be present behind the scenes of your GitHub Copilot as a service. And this GitHub Copilot, it has been used in the extensive editors like Visual Studio Code, your Intel 4J. There are quite a few editors which has been used as part of a GitHub Copilot editor-based suggestions. It enabled the editor-based suggestions as well as your GitHub Copilot is going to provide an alternative suggestions whenever users started prompting those comments into code conversion. That is possible in terms of suggestion list, as well as this GitHub Copilot is going to provide how do you improve your suggestions based upon your in-context learning. That type of offering your GitHub Copilot is provided by the Codex model generation. Okay, so in terms of this GitHub Copilot, the entire generative AI landscape, if you observe, nowadays, the customer are more leveraged towards the power of Gen AI capability. Is your solution is having your Copilot based solution? That is the first aspect they will check. And the second aspect is your solution is enabled with your Gen AI based enablement. Is it possible? So those two are the aspects. Nowadays, the customer is moving towards the era of AI field that is more popular or that is more trending in the market. So with this GitHub Copilot, we'll able to conclude the architecture of GitHub Copilot is it plays the role of driver as well as navigator. Okay. Or very often the role will be switched between the driver as well as the navigator. When I say driver, driver is the one person who started writing the code, and the navigator is the person or it is a role where it is going to inspect the code or code review or code suggestions or improvisation has been done by the navigator role. So these two are the effective roles of GitHub Copilot architecture. So people, most of them, they will always ask, this GitHub Copilot, is it a magic? Of course, it's not a magic. This is a tool. It is used to boost your developer productivity. Okay. So when we gone for the interview panel or else in terms of recruitment, so we will be dividing the people who knows GitHub Copilot, and there is one certain crowd who will not use GitHub Copilot. Okay. So what has happened in terms of the statistic information? If you observe the people are a group of people who use GitHub Copilot. Almost 1 million plus developers started using GitHub Copilot. That is one of the surveys says, and 55 percentage of the people who used GitHub Copilot will increase in terms of acceleration towards the innovation capability they able to build with the help of GitHub Copilot. Most of the manual work or most of the repetitive task has been replaced with the help of this GitHub Copilot AI assistance tool. And the other information, what is the major other information is almost 75 percentage of the people are more fulfilled with the GitHub Copilot approach. So how this magic has been happen in terms of this Ghost GitHub Copilot is this GitHub Copilot always boosts in terms of developer productivity. When I say developer productivity, the task which is done by the manual work or the repetitive task will be eliminated in terms of the GitHub Copilot usage, and user has better way of thinking, the better way of innovating solutions when they use GitHub Copilot. That's what it says, accelerating the innovation aspect. And even though you are not a part of a code developer, a code engineers, still it has providing a lot of opportunities in the GitHub Copilot field so that you'll able to bridge the skill gap between the one who knows GitHub Copilot, the other will not knows anything about GitHub Copilot. That type of technical gaps has been reduced if you use GitHub Copilot. And as well as since you are using the GitHub Copilot in terms of AI assistance, in terms of AI pair programmer, in terms of your Copilot assistance, it is used to enhance the code quality as well as it is used to improve your coding experience even more better with the already existing tools in the market. So how will you install your GitHub Copilot? The first and foremost prerequisite thing you should check in terms of GitHub Copilot installation is check whether you have been installed your Visual Studio Code. Okay, whether you have installed a Visual Studio Code or not, you have to check it out. After the successful installation of your Visual Studio Code, you have to search for the GitHub Copilot in the extension view of your Visual Studio Code. You have to search in the extension view, search for GitHub Copilot. So once you search for the GitHub Copilot extension in the Visual Studio Code, you start installing the GitHub Copilot extension, and you have to wait for the GitHub Copilot extension tool to complete. Once the installation is successfully done, it is always recommended to see the software or the tool is successfully integrated into your application. It is always good to restart your Visual Studio Code. So once that is done, at the end of the screen in your Visual Studio Code, you may able to see the GitHub Copilot icon will be present, whether the GitHub Copilot is activated or not activated. So that type of installation procedures you have to follow if you want the GitHub Copilot in your Visual Studio Code. So this is the one of the survey. The survey says 88% of the population seeing the GitHub Copilot is more faster, and the less time in terms of spending, in terms of code-based aspect, rather than searching on the Google. It is always better to use your GitHub Copilot as an AI assistance tool, and it is more fulfilling approach when you go for your GitHub Copilot rather than any other tools in the market. So as I told earlier in the GitHub Copilot feature, there are more number of languages the GitHub Copilot has supported, like Python, JavaScript, Ruby, your TypeScript, your Go language. These are the languages supported the GitHub Copilot. Along with this, Java is also supported, your .NET is also supporting GitHub Copilot. So editors like Visual Studio Code, your Visual Studio, and your JetBrains, as well as your Intel 4J, your NeoVim, these are the Copilot, GitHub Copilot supported editors. Popular frameworks like AngularJS, your React.js, your Vue.js, it is supported your GitHub Copilot frameworks. So let's get into the demo aspect. So the first demo, I'm going to demonstrate the GitHub Copilot environment, how the environment will look like, and what are do's and don'ts you are supposed to do when you go for GitHub Copilot. Let me show the GitHub Copilot window. So this is a GitHub Copilot window. This is a Microsoft Visual Studio Code editor. So in this editor, go to the extension. You have to start searching the option called as GitHub Copilot. So in the GitHub Copilot, you have to go for the GitHub Copilot extension. Just click this extension and install. I have installed already the GitHub Copilot. Once it is installed, you restart your Visual Studio Code. After this, you may able to see there is a GitHub Copilot already I have activated in the bottom. Okay. This is how you have to check whether your GitHub Copilot is successfully installed in your Visual Studio Code editor. So that's the first demo. And the demo 2 we will be discussing is what are the shortcut keys you have to go for the GitHub Copilot? Okay, so there are a quite amount of shortcut keys available as part of the GitHub Copilot. The first shortcut key you should remember is, so once your GitHub Copilot has been installed and it has been activated, so use the command palette Control Shift P. This command palette Control Shift P, just type GitHub Copilot. You may able to see there are 4 to 5 important shortcut keys available. One is the moment you started typing the comment, and if you want to accept that comments into code, you have to press the key you have to press the key tab key. And the other one is you are not want to accept any code based suggestion, use escape key. So tab key is used to accept the code suggestions, and escape key is used to deny your code suggestions. And if I want to navigate to the next panel suggestions, use Alt plus your close square bracket. And your previous panel suggestion is Alt plus your open square bracket. Okay. And if I want to know the list of code based suggestions available for the GitHub Copilot, use Control plus Enter. Okay. And if you want to accept any panel to your code based suggestions, use Control plus /. So these 5 shortcut keys will play a vital role in your GitHub Copilot. So other than that, the next demo we will be discussing about how we will be using the GitHub Copilot in your coding or else in your programming space. So let's create a Python code. So I'm going to create a Python code. So as I told earlier, we have to start writing the comment. Okay. So I'm going to write a comment called as create a class named as person with the fields, first name and the last name. First name, comma, last name, and print it. So this is the comment I have written inside the GitHub Copilot. Okay. This particular comment, it is going to convert into code-based suggestions. How it is going to be converted to code-based suggestions? Just provide the enter key. And it is again, it is giving me one more suggestions. I don't want to accept this particular suggestions. What is the key I have to use is escape key. And if I give enter, automatically the code it started suggesting. So this is the comment. This comment is converted into code. If I want to accept this particular line of code, I have to press the tab key. I have accepted this. After the moment I have started accepting, so it is giving me the second set of code suggestion says it is a constructor def underscore double underscore init cell first name last name. There is a constructor in your Python programming. And I'm asking one more after this two fields, I'm asking him to print it. Okay. If you want to accept it, just press here and give enter. Just a second. I accepted this suggestion. Then I need to create an object for this. We have to wait it. Object is automatically given the code suggestions. Just accept this object. P1 is an object and person is the class. And I'm passing two parameter because it is a parameterized constructor. Give enter. And it is providing, if I want to call this particular method print, I accept this suggestions. So that's it. My code is ready now. Okay. Rather than searching the code in the online or else Google search, it is always to write your comment and that particular comment is adapts to the coding style or the developer style. That is the overall purpose of your GitHub Copilot. Okay. So whatever you're thinking in a mind, it is automatically reflecting in the environment. That is the power of using GitHub Copilot in your AI-based tool or AI-enabled application. If you want to execute this particular application, it is easy to execute it. I'm executing this particular application. Just enter it. I'm able to execute this code as well. Okay. So one more thing, what I said is, if I want to provide more suggestions, okay, I'm giving enter. So this is giving another suggestions. I want to see the list of suggestions provided by this. Use Control Enter. This will automatically synthesize your code-based suggestions, whether you want to accept this particular solution or not. The list of suggestions you may able to see in the GitHub Copilot editor as well. Okay. Whichever suggestions you want to accept it as part of the code synthesizer, it is possible to accept it. So that is the overall power of your GitHub Copilot. So the next demo, what we are going to discuss, the next demo is, let's see the next demo as well. The next demo, I'm going to demonstrate the GitHub Copilot, how it is used to build any machine learning model. If I want to build any machine learning model, I can make use of the GitHub Copilot tool to do any type of building machine learning model. It is easy to build when you go for GitHub Copilot. Okay. So this demo also we can see now. So in this demo, what I'm trying to do, let me do it. So I'm going to write one comment. Okay, what is the comment I'm going to write? I'm going to import the pandas library. Okay, I'm typing import pandas library. I have typed it. Automatically it is providing me the solution. Okay, whether you want to accept this code suggestion, press tab key. I have pressed it. I didn't ask the GitHub Copilot to generate the next code suggestion, but still it is suggesting this particular library has to be imported. Accepting this particular suggestion or rejecting this particular code suggestion, it is in the hand of the developer's part. So I'm not accepting this, I'm just rejecting this. How do you reject? You just press escape key to reject it. The next comment, what I'm going to type it is, let's say, load the Titanic data set, load the Titanic data set using pandas with the data frame here. So this is the power of a prompt engineer. Okay, when people say is this GitHub Copilot, the Azure OpenAI comes, lot of job roles will goes off. Okay, the roles in the sense that all your manual work or the repetitive task will be replaced with this tool. Your job will not be replaced. Okay, rather, it opens an ample amount of opportunities, especially the prompt engineer, prompt specialist, prompt AI ethics. So these are the new job roles are available in the market with the power of GitHub Copilot as well as your Azure OpenAI is concerned or even a large language model is concerned. Okay, but you have to educate the prompt in a clear-cut manner so that it will provide the correct suggestion. I have accepted it. After I accepted it, I want to print the entire data frame df. It is, if you want to accept it, just press tab key to accept. If you want to print it, execute this particular code, Python sample 6.py. Sorry, I didn't save it. I have saved it now. You can see the result. You can see 891 rows, 12 columns. Similarly, you can provide the, I want to print the total number of rows and columns using shape method. So it is giving me the suggestions. If you want to execute, you execute it. So likewise, I want to print the first 5 rows. I want to print the first 5 rows in the data frame. I accept it. Similarly, I want to print the last 5 rows of the data frame. I can accept it. I want to print the first 10 rows. Use df.head of 10. Last 10 rows, can accept it. I don't want this. What I want is print the non-null values in the data frame. Is null.sum. So likewise, you can accept your code-based suggestion. You can see this. So this is for the head, tail, your is null.sum. Similarly, if I want to print the non-null values in the data frame, there is a method called as not null. And print the values using info method. There is a method called info method. Print the values using describe method. There is come the describe method for descriptive statistics. So likewise, you can able to build your own machine learning models with the help of your the GitHub Copilot tool. I hope the demo is clear to everyone. Any questions? How quickly does it adapts to the, just a second, how quickly that is adapts to the newer versions of the libraries. Okay, so it will has that capability by default, the GitHub Copilot extension. Whenever there is an update, you have to update your GitHub Copilot extension. Then it will automatically adapt to newer versions of your libraries. So there is one more question: IntelliSense versus your GitHub Copilot architecture comparison. So IntelliSense, that's not a tool. IntelliSense, it's just a option where you'll able to see the methods are the different functionalities that will list. That is IntelliSense. IntelliSense will not give you the complete code suggestion, but GitHub Copilot will give the code suggestions. How it is differentiate from OpenAI, which is better. Okay, so in terms of the GitHub Copilot tool, it is derived from the Codex model. But when you go for OpenAI Codex or else Azure OpenAI Codex, it has only three capabilities. Either you can convert natural language to SQL or natural language to Python, or else explain SQL query. These three query task is possible in the Azure OpenAI based model. But in GitHub Copilot, it has a rich library set, rich language, as well as rich in terms of frameworks as well. How does Copilot handle licensing issues? Will it break GPL restrictions? Answer is no. It will not break any GDPR restriction. The data will not be saved. The data will not be used for any other training purpose. That trust you can believe from Microsoft. That's a question. Could not take the image of code. Can you please share your LinkedIn and chat? And can you please talk about the autofill? Okay. Autofill meaning is whenever you have constants or else different types of functionalities you define in the code section, automatically it will fills your code suggestions. No need to type it. That is the meaning of your repetitive codes will be automatically filled with the help of GitHub Copilot. How do you think about open source LLM A will disrupt the GitHub Copilot? See, your large language model with the Meta is having its own Copilot. Okay, so that's what I mentioned. Every tool nowadays has the power of Copilot so that it will minimize the task of the developers rather than searching on the Google. It automatically provides the code-based suggestions if you use your GitHub Copilot or else Microsoft 365 Copilot, Sales Copilot. I think Nandip has been shown in the initial picture, right? Every tool of AI-enabled assistance has its own Copilot. So how does it handle data security? There is no data leakage when you use GitHub Copilot because it is present within the tenant and it will be there in 45 days inside the tenant. If you want to extend your tenant, you can extend your tenant for the number of days duration as well. And the data will not be leaked. The data is safe and secure. You can trust Microsoft with the help of the Content Safety Studio service. Okay. Generally, I handle a lot of repetitive Java Spring-based WebMSC pattern. Will GitHub Copilot automatically generate? Yes, because GitHub Copilot has Java editor as well. You can make use of the Spring MVC to do that. Answer is yes. Even for your Spring WebMSC MVC architecture, Spring Boot architecture also, it will minimize all your repetitive code if you use your GitHub Copilot. Answer is yes. So I have three more slides and I'll complete it and I'll take a question at last. So the next question I was going to mention in my slide is how to improve your coding workflow when you use GitHub Copilot. There are six aspects to improve your coding workflow. One is your code completion. The second one is error correction. The third one is your code refactoring. When I say code completion, it is going to provide a list of code-based suggestions in your GitHub Copilot with the help of your code suggestions workflow. And the second one is error correction. When I say error correction, it will automatically detect and suggest this is the error in your code. You can correct it with the help of GitHub Copilot chat also. That is possible when you go for error corrections. Code refactoring is possible if I want to improve my coding flow, or else if I want to speed up my coding process. This GitHub Copilot always suggested refactoring of code or reorganizing of code structure is possible. The other three aspect of improving my code workflow is navigation. It is easy to navigate the code-based suggestions for your functionalities, for your variables, for your methods. The entire procedure has been easy to navigate when you use GitHub Copilot. And it has the collaboration within your team, like you may have a certain set of developers, one who is going to build different types of module. They can pair with each other to collaborate with the help of the GitHub Copilot tool in terms of code based suggestions. And this GitHub Copilot, it is easy to integrate with a lot of development tools. And prompt engineering as an art. Okay, whenever you start using GitHub Copilot, the convert the complete comment into Copilot with the help of your prompt engineering only. So you have to give that effective way of prompting with a detailed instructions so that your GitHub Copilot able to process and able to generate an accurate and detailed responses whenever you start commenting any code, and that particular comment will be converted into code based suggestions. That is possible with the art of prompt engineering. Okay. So in order to understand the prompt engineering, here is the illustration of a prompt engineering. Let's guide the robot to make a sandwich with proper instructions. I'm having a robot, and this particular robot, I'm having a pack of bread along with the different slices of your ingredients. I'm going to pass it into a different slices of bread. I'm going to organize this into 4 tables. Those proper guidance, it is enabled for a robot to provide a detailed prompt so that it will make a sandwich in a better crafted manner. Okay. So this is to understand the effectiveness of prompt engineering. So likewise, whenever you started typing your prompt in the GitHub Copilot, provide a detailed prompt, provide a concise prompt, provide a precise prompt so that the response is even more better whenever the prompt it is going to be processed. So these are the 5 best practices whenever you use prompt engineering with the GitHub Copilot. The first one is you always provide a high level context followed with a detailed instructions. So when I say high level context followed with a detailed instructions, I have provided like import pandas library. Give them the detail in a detailed manner. Okay, don't give pandas library. Okay. So that's not a right way to give that way of prompting. You have to give the prompting in a detailed description. That is the first one. And provide specific details and examples. When I say provide specific details and example, you have to take in context learning like zero shot learning, few shot learning, one shot learning. Those type of examples you have to provide whenever you start writing the prompt. And this GitHub Copilot always use different types of code suggestions. At the moment if you press Control Enter, it is providing the list of top 10 suggestions. Whether you want to accept the suggestions, whether you want to reject those suggestions, that's up to you. And always keep your repository updated. If there is any new extension, new library has been there in the GitHub Copilot extension, please update your extensions up to date. And the moment you update any type of extensions, always inform to your team or always collaborate with your team. Don't work in silos. So these 5 are the best practices whenever you start using any prompt engineering with the help of a GitHub Copilot. And in terms of pricing, there are two models of pricing model. One is individual pricing, the other one is business pricing. So for the individual, the GitHub Copilot cost is $10 per month and $19 per month if you have Copilot for users. And there are different features you may able to see. You may able to plug to write editor, natural language will be converted into code-based suggestions. And if you want to speed up your process, you can go for GitHub Copilot for individuals. When you go for your Copilot for business, so everything, every features, including your proxy support, your industry-based privacy, everything is included. You go for Copilot for business. And the one of the important thing, I think there is a participant, Mayuri, I think. So she's asking if you are an engineering student or whether you are working professional. My recommendation, Microsoft Learn is providing the GitHub Copilot certification. So you can get the GitHub Copilot certification as well. Please scan this URL to get the GitHub Copilot certification as well. I hope you scan the QR code.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
The next one is, that's it. You can scan. This is my LinkedIn QR code. You can scan that also if you want to connect me. Now I'll open the session for question. We have 2 minutes.